Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, my go-to for building a website and online shop. Hello my dear friends, today's video is part one of a two-part series featuring my latest oil painting. In this video, I'll explain my process in creating a wipeout underpainting, as well as the 3 mistakes I made along the way. Real quick before I begin, if you'd like to see a 52-minute version of this video where I recorded instructional voiceover as I was working in real time, along with hundreds of hours of exclusive content and monthly art rewards, feel free to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/happydartist. As with all of my paintings, I'm starting this one with a concept sketch, though this one is a bit different from the others because my concept sketch is a bit larger and higher fidelity than usual. That is because I'm going to be trying out a completely new process in starting my painting with a wipeout, deviating from my usual go-to technique of sketching my block in with paint, followed by a monochromatic grisaille. This time, I'm planning on doing a drawing transfer onto my panel followed by a wipeout. So yes, I know, I'm such a rebel. And though I'm usually not a fan of wipeouts, I had only tried it once and I figured I should give it a fair shot and some more practice before I write it off completely. So this is officially my second wipeout ever. It went a bit better than the first time, but I made 3 mistakes. So let's start with the first mistake. For context, after finishing the concept sketch, I scanned it and used Photoshop to crop the image to match the aspect ratio of my panel, which is 11 by 14. I also faded the lines to be a lighter gray so that I could draw over the lines with a ballpoint pen. Then I printed it out, cut it, and now it's time for the drawing transfer. This is where I made my first mistake. I decided to use my old graphite transfer paper, which made the lines way too light no matter how hard I pressed. The correct way to do this is to use charcoal sticks, which I had unfortunately left at school. So the next day, I grabbed my charcoal sticks from school and did the transfer the right way, by covering the back of the printout with charcoal and making a huge mess in the process. My teacher at school prefers this technique over using transfer paper because this way ensures a dark enough transfer line that can be easily seen through the next step. And also, charcoal is easy to erase in case you make a mistake during the transfer. It's also important to think of transferring the drawing as an act of drawing, not an act of tracing. This means that instead of just blindly tracing over the lines, it's important to use the natural gestures and hand motions you would use as if you were drawing those lines from scratch. This creates transfer lines that are more natural and accurate. So, after finishing the transfer and spraying the panel with artist fixative, it's time to tone the panel, which is where I made my second and third mistakes. Before toning the panel, I evenly wiped the surface with a thin layer of Gamsol. That was fine, but I thought I'd try to use Gamblin's Terre Verte instead of Williamsburg's Bohemian Green Earth because I was running low on Bohemian Green Earth and I had a lot of Terre Verte left over. Turns out that Terre Verte does not have the same tinting strength as Bohemian Green Earth, despite the 2 colors looking similar in the tube. After using a huge dollop of Terre Verte and barely being able to tint the panel even a little bit, I tried using just a tiny bit of Bohemian Green Earth, and the difference was simply astounding, as you can clearly see here. It's weird because typically I love painting with Gamblin brand oil paints, and pretty much all of my oil paint collection is from Gamblin, so I have nothing but love for this brand. I only have 2 colors that are from Williamsburg, and that is Bohemian Green Earth and Cadmium Yellow Medium. Now, I haven't really tested the difference between the 2 brands in terms of Cadmium Yellow Medium, but in terms of this similar kind of earthy green color, I think maybe just my tube of Terre Verte was too old, or maybe this color in particular just isn't as pigmented as Williamsburg's version, which is very pigmented. Anyway, that brings me to my third mistake, and that is using nothing but Bohemian Green Earth to tone my panel. I really should have used some ivory black or burnt umber or some other dark earthy color to make the tone of the panel a bit darker in value, because a wipeout involves wiping away the tone in order to reveal the white of the panel underneath. So the darker the tone, the wider the value spectrum you can reveal by wiping it away. If the tone is starting off already too light in value, then there's not much visual distinction from the white of the panel and the lightness of the tone. Luckily, there is a way to combat this, and that is to scumble in some white paint on top of the wipeout using a dry brush technique. For mine, it helped a bit, but my panel was simply too light to start off with for it to look as dynamic as I wanted. But at least in this step, I avoided the mistakes I made the first time I did a wipeout, because this time around, I waited a few minutes for the tone to set, aka dry, before I started wiping it away, which created smoother, softer marks. In my first wipeout attempt, I started wiping it away right after finishing toning the panel while everything was still way too wet, which created gross, messy marks. So while I made new mistakes, at least I didn't repeat my old mistakes. Yay! And hopefully with each new future wipeout attempt, I can reduce the mistakes and finally get the hang of it someday. Anyway, thank you all for watching this and listening to me recap a story that is probably objectively quite dull, but hopefully it was interesting and somewhat useful for any oil painters out there thinking of trying a wipeout as a way to start your piece. Hopefully my mess ups can help you avoid making the same mistakes on your journey. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll actually be painting, coming up very soon. And of course, you guessed it, my eternal never-ending sale is still going on in my shop, so if you'd like 20% off your order of prints and originals, just enter the code HOLIDAY at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the art community. Squarespace is the best platform to create a professional website and online shop. Their beautifully designed templates are easy to use for beginners and look great on both desktop and mobile. I've sold my art through Squarespace for almost 10 years, and I can attest to the quality of their online commerce features, whether you want to sell digital or physical items. They also provide useful analytics that help you make the most of your online business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/happydartist to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @happydartist.